Hello everyone, I'm Douglas from Other Than Intended Purposes. Jack's behind the camera and Modi is being a dog. So, I am trying to be a little more regular with videos, but the weather and my old bones have not been cooperating. But I am actually outdoors today. So, the first thing we want to do out here is bring up, or is in one of the knife discussion groups recently, they were talking about your 10 favorite knives. And every single person that said their 10 favorite knives said 10 folders. And I can't do that because in my favorite knives there's a lot of fixed blades. So what I did was I split it in half, and I've got 5 fixed blades and 5 folders and a couple of honorable mentions, more that need to be mentioned than are like we're in the running. So we're going to just jump off into this, and we're going to start with fixed blades because there's a lot of discussion and a lot of showing off of folders, and fixed blades I don't think get as much attention. So my number one for the last over 4 years has been my Tops Brothers of Bushcraft Fieldcraft knife. Now, I have big hands. We've established that. My number 5 knife will actually demonstrate how big my hands are to people that know some of the blades I have. But this gives you a full grip. It's squared off, which I like, but it does have the ability to very comfortably be held in all of the positions that I hold a knife for fieldcraft, for bushcraft. It has a Scandi grind. It's pretty easy to sharpen. It's 1095, but this is definitely my number one fixed blade knife. And a lot of my knives, or a lot of my fixed blades, you'll notice have ferro rods on them. This one I actually made the lanyard for because I didn't like what was on it. Number 2 is my LT Right Bushcrafter. This is the only super steel blade that I own at all. This is 3V, I think. That's right, this is 3V. But this knife, while it's a little bit rounder in the handle, it's more of a broom handle, you still have the ability to hold it in for chest pulls, or chest pulls this way, sorry. It's a comfortable knife, and it's very, very good, and the fit and finish on this is just phenomenal. You cannot feel the transition. Now, both of these are canvas micarta handles. On the tops, I admit you can kind of feel the transition, but it's a much more production knife. These are more hand crafted, and you cannot find the transition with your finger. It came with a really nice leather sheath and ferro rod, and this one I put bungee cord on to lock it in place. Although this is a relatively new ferro rod, I haven't used it much, and so it is pretty stiff in there, but as it gets more use, locked in place. Okay, that is not somebody being murdered. The park that we're in is next to a zoo, and there's a donkey with a bad day, having a bad day over there. It happens from time to time. The next one on my fixed blade list, it's a little less of a field knife, even though there are some people that consider it a field knife. This is more of an everyday carry knife that needs a little touch up on the... There's a ding on the blade. But this is the SE3. Now this has got a much smaller handle. It's really good for a lot of tasks, but for my hands, I would not consider this a good bushcraft knife, because where these fill my hand up and give me a good feeling of control for hours long use. I could do a lot of heavy work with these. This one's more of a light to medium use grip. Now, if you've got smaller hands, you might have a different view on that, but I don't have smaller hands. If I had smaller hands than me, that would be kind of awkward. This knife came to me in this sheath. This is not the factory sheath. This is a... God, I wish I could remember. I'll try to remember to annotate who made this sheath. Altus? Something like that. Again, paracord on the ferro rod. This is an SE4, which it is. Now the cutting edge is not that much bigger than on the SE3, but it's definitely got more length. It's got a thicker spine. Again, though, it's a little bit thin. Both of these do have an actual choil, not just for sharpening purposes. And the ricasso comes. I mean, the ricasso is part of the is included in the choil on that. But you can get a finger in there, except my big fingers, I'm a little too close to the sharp edge, so I don't do that. But this is more of a medium duty, medium use knife. And you can tell, I don't know if you can tell it or not, but the traction coating is about worn off right there, because I do use this one quite a bit for day-to-day stuff. I'll wear this if I'm going to be wearing a knife around town. The SE3 or the SE4 are real high on those lists. Now getting to the big boy of my favorites. This is the BK7. This one's got quite a bit of use marks on the traction coating. When you get these, the traction coating is almost the consistency of like 80 grit sandpaper, and that's smooth as a baby's bottom now, which means I'm probably going to start breaking through pretty soon. Now, all of these knives except for the LT Right are high carbon steel. That means you've got to oil them, you've got to be on top of it all the time, especially living close to the coast. Rust is not my friend. But when I was saying about the size of my hand, Becker Knives, BK7, BK2, BK9, they all have the same grips. And anyone who has ever had one of these, you see a lot of people in the videos and they've got all 4 fingers on it and it looks like that. When I grab a hold of this, I have filled that up as far as it can go. Now, it's not tight, it's not pushing, but I don't want it to be any smaller. The reason that this is on my list, is on my favorites, is it has the capability to do the things that this does, or this does, but it also is big enough, you're getting almost into the realm where this can be used as a chopper. This can be used in a survival emergency. This can be used for things that the bob just is not big enough to do. Also, this was designed to be a combat Bowie and survival knife. So it has a better finger guard. It has a thumb ramp instead of just having jimping, where this has jimping and both of the SEs have jimping, which is the notches. This one ramps up to the jimping, so when you get a hold of it, there's stabbing power, there's thrusting power. If you hold it a little bit further back, put one finger down by the pommel, you've got a snap. You can chop with it, light chopping with it, wrist diameter branches and stuff for trying to make shelters. It's a really tough knife. It's a proven knife. It has been through hell and back by so many people. And this is a little fire kit. The sheath actually that comes with the BK7 has a little secondary sheath in here. Now mine actually came with this. I guess they no longer do. But this is a BK13 Remora. and that is a cute little knife. But this would be big enough if something happened to my main blade. This would be big enough to whittle down some shavings and make a bow drill kit and start a fire and keep myself alive. It's not the reason I like the knife, it's just something that goes along with it. Now, talking about field knives, and when I'm using a fixed blade knife, more often than not, that's what I'm talking about, is a field knife. Hey Jack?
Huh?
I don't see a blinking light. Is the battery dead?
Still recording, so good.
Okay. Sorry about that. I would be remiss talking about bushcrafting knives if I didn't bring up the Remora Companion Heavy Duty. Now this one has got, this is the carbon version, not the stainless version, and you can tell that because, well, it's patinaing quite a bit. It's basically brown at this stage. And it's clean. I scrubbed the crap out of it. It's just, that's what it is. These are Skandavik steel. They're made in Sweden. This is the only knife in this group that is not a full tang. It's a rat tang, which means it tapers back and disappears about there. The overmolded handle is really good to grip onto. I have never broken a Remora, and I have done things with them I shouldn't do, but they are not full tangs, so there's a good chance that they're not going to be as robust as a Tops Bob or an Essie or a Becker. And I mean, if you this one has definitely seen a lot more action than some that I know of that other people have. And these are really reliable knives. And this is under $20. I ain't gonna lie, there's a lot of money on this table. Some of it was gifts, some of it was trades, but there is a lot of money on this table. This is a $20 knife, and it will do 80% of what you need, even if you're going like hard survival. Now, I am going to put these back in their sheaths real quick. And while I am putting these back in their sheaths, there's something that has nothing to do with knives that I wanted to say.
And now there's 5 more cents.
You're right.
Found on the floor.
Outstanding. Tree money. There is a good friend, belongs to the knife, or he's within the knife community. He is well known. His name is Zach, and he has been working on spreading the word for something that doesn't benefit him personally, but he feels benefits everybody. And I don't know if you noticed the real shiny sticker on my water bottle. This isn't the water bottle I put in the fire, so the stickers are okay. But it's DSKFS. That's do something kind for someone. And he's got the little pound sign thing. I know, it's a hashtag. I'm old and I hate the fact that they call it that. So it's got the little pound sign thing. But keep this in mind day to day as you're going through your stuff. And if you see the opportunity, do something kind for someone. That can be as simple as just saying something nice to them. Make them smile. Doesn't have to be a big deal. Now, on to folders. I don't know if, real quick, I don't know if I said or not, this was the honorable mention one. This isn't what I would consider one of my favorite field knives, but it is definitely a good knife. That's the Remora. Honorable mention. Okay, on to folders. What you use most, or what I use most, is not always necessarily indicative of which ones are my favorites. What I use has a lot to do with circumstances. That being said, I waited for this knife for 5 years because the developers and the designers and the bosses at Tops said, "We're going to do this." And everybody says, "Okay, cool." And they says, "Yes, we're planning on doing it." And they said, "Okay, when?" He says, "Exactly. It's in the works. Show me something." No. So it took 5 years for them to do it, but they took my favorite field knife and they made it into a folder. So my favorite folder, now there's a little bit of difference in the blade. Stock is a little bit thinner. Handle is actually a little bit bigger, but that's because it's making up for the fact that it doesn't have a pommel. Very similar in shape. Tops, Brothers of Bushcraft, Fieldcraft folder. That's my number one folding knife. Now I don't carry this very often for 2 reasons. One, I almost lost. Well, it was a gift from somebody that is a very, very good friend, and I started carrying it when he gave it to me. I carried it for 2 months, and then I thought I had lost it, and luckily I found it inside the seat of a friend of mine's truck. It had hooked on it was in Jerry's truck.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that was for Jack. It had hooked on the seat belt and came out of my pocket when I came out of the truck. And I was so concerned that I was going to lose it that I now only carry it when I am going to be needing this type of knife instead of one of my other folders. So, number 1, Brothers of Bushcraft folder. Number 2, for the last 4 months, this has been what has been in my pocket. And I am really liking it. This is the CRKT Rikiri. This has got a... I did a video on this recently where you can take this apart without any tools. It's got 3 pieces. You don't have any springs to worry about. You don't have any pins to worry about. You don't have any spacers or ball bearings or anything like that to worry about. It comes apart into 3 pieces. So when I'm not home, I can still take it apart and clean it. I will take apart my other knives at home, but I have drop springs, I have dropped washers, I have dropped spacers. And trying to find them in my room is bad enough. Trying to find them in the woods, it's never going to happen. So I like carrying this one because it's one that I can take apart and clean. If I use this for food, I don't want food getting down in my pivot and going nasty. Or if I use it for something nasty, I don't want that being down in my pivot in case I want to use it for food. So, the Rikiri. Number 3. This knife is just badass. There's no other way around it. This is the Honey Badger modified sheep's foot. And you heard that snap, I hope. See how easy that closes? That snaps out. That is just a badass piece of knife. Now, this is the bigger. This one. They do make a smaller version of this. I wish this was only the medium, because if this was like a 4.5-inch blade, you couldn't get it away from me.
I still say it looks like a gator.
Yeah, it kind of does. But just a little bit of wiggling, that sucker will drop down on there. That has got, I don't remember, I think this one has bronze bushings. But it is so slick. The detent on it is perfect. When you hit that flipper, it's coming out. I don't think I have ever failed flipping this. And if you're not a knife person, failing when you flip means that, like, and it doesn't come all the way. That one's going to come out in a minute. Don't worry about that. Number 4. I like function over form. I carry Leatherman tools because I like the function of Leatherman tools. I carry knives that do a good job of cutting. Sometimes you need something that's a little bit beefier than a Leatherman tool, but not quite, you know, a big knife. This is the Victorinox Ranger Grip 78, and that's a pretty decent blade on it, and the locking mechanism is actually in the shield. That's kind of cool. This is the biggest, most aggressive saw I have ever seen in a folding knife. It's obviously not a folding saw like a pruning saw or something like that, I hate my brain. The green saw that I like. Worry about it later. It's definitely not that big, but much like the Leatherman saws, this has got a wicked 90-degree angle, which means I can use it to scrape tinder down on small branches. I can also scrape a ferro rod with it. These saws are, this is a good inch bigger longer than my Leatherman saws, my biggest Leatherman saws. Really good for notching, really good for trap building, shelter building, things like that. This is an excellent saw. It does have a bottle opener on it because everything's a freaking bottle opener anymore. I don't really use the screwdriver on this because I do have Leatherman with me, and that says it is a wire stripper. I have never once, in all the years that I have carried different tools, used a little notch like that as a wire stripper. I'm an old redneck. I cut around the wire with the blade, trying really careful not to get into the copper, and then take my pliers and not quite tight on them and pull it. That's the way I strip wires. This also has a can opener. Now I have actually used this can opener to open cans of chicken to put in with noodles and stuff when I was out in the field. I've made Jack and I lunch with it many times. Of course, being a Swiss Army knife, it has tweezers. Those are decent tweezers. They're decent for splinters. It's got a toothpick that, I don't know, I've never used the toothpick on that. It has an awl. And I have had people ask me, what's the difference between an awl and a punch? Well, there's a little hole in this right there. You can put your thread or take paracord apart and use the inside and put that through there. And then when you punch it through, take another piece and come up from the other side to complete the stitch. And when you pull it, so you can actually use this as a sewing awl. You can repair canvas, leather, other heavy materials with it. And one thing I really like about this particular model is it does not have, there's one exactly like this that has the corkscrew, but this doesn't have a corkscrew, it's got a screwdriver. Again, I am 54 years old. I have had pocket knives that had corkscrews in them going back to 1975, and I have never, ever, ever once been out in the woods and like, I need to open a bottle that has a cork. Never happened. So I'm just as happy to take that or have that corkscrew be replaced with a screwdriver. Last one in my 5. This is the Buck Highline. That's just cool. Again, why do I like this one so much? Well, it's a buck. It goes back to tradition for me with the buck, but it's just a really cool knife, and it's really, really good at doing its job. I keep this one in my jacket pocket, not my overshirt, but my heavy jacket. This is the backup folder that I have with me. If I'm wearing my green army jacket, then this is in the pocket, and I've got a backup knife with me. Okay, we're dragging this on a little bit, real quick into the two honorable mentions. This is the second knife that I ever owned in my life. The first knife that I ever owned in my life is gone. I have no idea what happened to it. When I was 6 years old, my dad gave me a case, 2-blade canoe. And it was amazing to me because I was 6. But I used it to open hay bales. I used it to open feed bags, cut strings, open packages, open the mail if my mom and dad would let me. And I loved that knife, and it disappeared. But when I still had that one, but when I was 9 years old, my great-grandfather passed away, and he left me this. And this is a Boker. And it was the second pocket knife I ever owned, and it needs a little love right now. It's been sitting in my desk drawer too long. But I will never forget what it felt like when they said that he had left this to me. So, and then the other honorable mention, when I was 13, I was in the FFA. And at that time, the only people that were allowed to carry a knife to school without getting in trouble if they got caught was the FFA. And we had to wear it on our belt, not in our pants pocket. And the only approved knife was the Buck 110 Hunter. I got this knife in 1983. And there was two versions. One of them had these finger grooves, one of them didn't. I got the one with the finger grooves because I had small hands at the time. I had little bitty hands. I was a midget. Oh wait, you're not supposed to say that word anymore, are you?
You were borderline.
They actually tested me for dwarfism. I was so small. But I love this knife. And when I was 13 years old, I did not know any better. And so I had one of those raunchy carbide pull-through sharpeners. And because I mostly used it for opening feed bags and stuff like that, the tip took 90% of the wear. And when the tip was dull and the back wasn't, I sharpened the tip with that nasty grinder metal removal thing. Now, Jack, take that up to the front. When this knife was new, the tip fit pretty much into the end of the handle. It doesn't anymore. That knife is still in better shape than I am. But that is what happens when you spend 10 years carrying that on your belt, mostly using the tip to cut. I never broke it. And then I eventually did start using a stone, but I was still only sharpening the tip every time I sharpened it. But that's why that makes the honorable mention list, is because this one has a lot. These two are very sentimental. These two are both destined to go to Jack someday. Now, thank you very much for listening to me ramble on. If you're still around, thank you very much. We are getting really close to 250 subscribers, and there will be something special happening when that does. Get out in the woods, enjoy yourself, and remember, the best equipment in the world means absolutely nothing if you don't know how to use that equipment. So take your gear to the woods, practice, and have fun. Stay safe.
Also, sorry if it's a little bit late for the 250 video. Weather, health, and shipping permitting.
Well, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But bye.